Today, at the so-called Sussex Summit in Balmoral, Prince William has secured a promise from King Charles that Prince Harry and Meghan Markle will not officially return as working royals. But I don't blame the heir to the throne to be concerned about what's really going on here, especially as Brits are now almost certain to be asked to fund an insane £5 million security bill annually as the duplicitous Duke and fake Duchess almost immediately start their old games with the British press. Yes, Guido Fawkes has revealed in the past few hours that they are intending to keep their money shot of the so-called children Archie and Lily protected, issuing a letter from the press regulator Ipso to newspaper editors. It reads in part, private and confidential, not for publication. Whoops, I'm not part of any regulator. Ipso has today been contacted by a representative acting on behalf of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Editors will be aware that the Duke and Duchess are relocating to the UK along with their two young children. It is the Duke and Duchess's wish that their children are able to grow up and enjoy their schooling and childhood safely and free of unnecessary intrusion and scrutiny. The family are aware that news outlets will wish to cover their return. However, they have significant privacy and security concerns regarding the potential reporting of the family's residence and the school to be attended by the children. They therefore request that editors do not publish any information identifying the location of their home or that could lead members of the public to identify their home, given the likelihood that this would lead to the intrusion into their children's privacy. For that same reason, they ask that the children's school is not identified. But in other words, right, they are saving the big reveal themselves for Instagram or a commercial deal. I think it's nuts. I'm sorry, I know no one in the mainstream media is going to say this. But this is a couple now returning to this country with two children who are in the line of succession, a prince and princess. They still have those titles, yet they don't believe we, the British public, have a right to actually see them. Also nuts is this, Prince Harry poncing around in Washington, D.C. overnight, making a completely inappropriate dig about Donald Trump, declaring that world leaders need less testosterone. We know who you're talking about, Harry. You're not smart. No wonder the Americans are celebrating. Indeed, Meghan Kelly has said the departure of Harry and Meghan is the first issue that has actually united Americans in 10 years.
Today, two important self-deportations that can unite all of America. This is the first thing we've been able to agree upon in over a decade. Meghan and Harry are leaving. Praise Jesus. They're going. Get back to the UK. Go become somebody else's problem. We're sick of you. We have enough weirdos, narcissistic, obsessed Americans already. The country's full. It's saturated. Go home, Harry. We never wanted you here to begin with. If we had to have one of the kids of Prince Charles, then Prince Charles, we all wanted William. No one wanted you.
Michael Knowles of the Daily Wire actually praised Donald Trump for this while sending his condolences to King Charles.
Meghan Markle and Prince Harry are moving back to the United Kingdom. I don't have any champagne to pop. I do have cigars that I could light this morning. This is obviously really great news for America. Congratulations, President Trump. Congratulations, my fellow Americans. We are finally ridding ourselves of the Markles, Mr. and Mrs. Markle, the artist formerly known as Prince Harry, now Mr. and Meghan Markle. They left the royal family, 3 years ago now, in order to move to America and become TV stars. And now they're moving back to the UK because that's all dried up. I do feel for His Majesty King Charles. I send my condolences.
As Wall Street Mav put it, the only thing that made them famous was being part of the royal family. Nobody is paying them anymore for books, TV, or candles. Harry and Meghan are completely running out of money. They are hoping Daddy King Charles will fund their lifestyle again. And after this damning court decision today, which doesn't cap the legal costs that Prince Harry has to pay back to the Daily Mail, he could be facing a massive bill. Of course, Harry and Meghan are fighting that narrative, though. Propagandist for the Sussexes, Chris Shipp of Woke ITV, has actually gone on air and specifically blamed Donald Trump.
I think they're both a bit unhappy in America, or certainly in Donald Trump's America. They're not really enjoying living there at the moment, and some of that sort of partisan media that you have on that side of the Atlantic. And that's all come together. I think there's probably, and this will, I'm sure, probably come out in due course, there's probably a specific reason why they are moving. But from here, the kids will go to school. Harry will keep doing what he does, and it means he can do more of those things in the UK, of course. And then Meghan will just continue with her brand, the As Ever brand that she's been growing from home in California. She just thinks she can do that from here. The big question, of course, is what they do about security and the ongoing arguments about security. That's a huge issue, still as yet unresolved. I'm told there are some kind of moving parts at the moment, but what will probably change that landscape when it comes to the decision on security is the fact that they will be residents here in the UK, and that might mean the Home Office committee that looks at these things will have to make a a different kind of assessment of the threat against Harry and Meghan if they are to be permanently resident in the UK, or at least for the next year or two.
Do you notice he's just pushing this line, isn't he? They just have to get their security paid for by us. That's why this is going to become a massive political hot potato, because we don't want to pay £5 million a year, as Di Davies predicts, for these grifters who thinks we're racist and who have spent years slagging off the British royal family and the UK itself. I believe Andy Burnham is soon going to discover, the new Prime Minister, that it's not a private matter either. With a bombshell YouGov poll sampling more than 5,000 people of varying ages today, finding that just 21% of the public believe Harry and Meghan should return to Britain, 33% said they should not. Those figures are only exacerbated when focus is put on the answers of those aged 65 or older, with just 20% of the belief that Harry and Meghan should relocate to the UK. So that's why what you're seeing is the Royal Rota, the sort of official mouthpieces of the royal family, pushing the line that Harry and Meghan will not return to royal duties. But listen carefully, because they simultaneously have to admit that they will be seen at royal events. What do royal events mean? Christmas and Easter, for example.
I do not see a world in which Harry and Meghan resume official working duties. Whether or not we see them more in public life, and we undoubtedly will we start to see them at some family occasions? Possibly. But I don't think you will see them back on, sovereign grant funded overseas tours on behalf of the government. I think if that was to happen, I think, William would have a strong view on that. And I don't think there's much appetite from the King for either. We keep being told there isn't.
Okay, so that is why this week's Sussex summit happening right now at Balmoral Castle, attended by most senior royals. Prince William is there, Princess Anne is there, the Tyndalls are there, Edward is there, Sophie is there, is becoming so significant. William and Catherine, the Princess of Wales, have put their foot down. They say they want no part in the Harry and Meghan drama. Good on them. This briefing to their close ally in the Royal Rota, Russell Myers of the Daily Mirror, who reported today Prince William is adamant there can be no way back for Harry and Meghan. Friends of the couple saying, while they cannot forgive the Sussexes, they cannot forgive the Sussexes. I'll repeat that. I think that's great. They are determined to look forward to the future. Yeah, a future without them. So this is what the source close to William and Catherine saying today. Obviously, the Sussexes' return will make inevitable headlines for a few days, but it has no bearing on the Prince and Princess's life moving forward. If anything, events that have affected them over the past couple of years have made them even more determined to concentrate on what is important to them, their family, their public roles, and the ability to provide generational change for good with their public roles and look forward to the future. Another source close to the Wales is adding, what Harry and Meghan choose to do is up to them. As far as William and Catherine are concerned, they have left that period of their lives behind them many years ago. While they simply cannot forgive everything that has been against them and the family, they do not have time or the energy for any negativity or the drama that the Sussexes surround themselves with. God, this is damning, isn't it? So true. As they have demonstrated with their public roles, everything they are trying to do, this is William and Catherine, of course, is about positivity and making the world a better place as far as they can. Another royal source, referring to Catherine's cancer battle, said during that time of considerable uncertainty for the family, while there were some mutterings that Harry was prepared to come back to the UK on a temporary basis to help out, given he had spent the previous 4 years railing against the institution, no one deemed his assistance worthwhile, and nothing has changed now. The Mirror then confirming what I have long reported, William has not spoken in person to his brother since the late Queen Elizabeth II's funeral. That was in September 2022, and they have not been in contact either on the phone or via text message for at least 2.5 years. Longtime King Charles reporter Robert Jobson predicts and says, though, that the worst is yet to come. He is calling this regrexit and says, but surely before Harry and Meg's get out the party streamers and welcome home banners for themselves, Harry owes his poor pa a very public apology. Not a phone call, not a private word over tea at Highgrove, public, said where the country that mourned Elizabeth II can hear it. I mean, I think we all deserve a public apology, don't you? But do you know what Harry is doing? He's actually briefing the Daily Telegraph, not that he will apologise, but just that he intends to shut up. Okay, let's see how long that lasts, mate, given he's already talking about the testosterone of political leaders in Washington, D.C. This is the reporting from Victoria Ward, who they first briefed their return to. The Duke of Sussex hopes to regain the King's trust by no longer talking about private family matters in public. If only he'd realised that 5 years ago. He's committed, she reports, to reconciliation and rebuilding relationships. But then the kicker, and this refers to what I was saying earlier, it is further understood that the Duke and Duchess plan not to expose their children to the public eye. There will be no photographs released of Archie and Lilibet on their first day at their new UK school in September, and no portraits released on their birthday. Oh, this is mad, isn't it? This is all completely mad. And then we come to the political dimension of this. And what you're seeing is the worst people in Britain. You know who I'm talking about, the race baiters, the hard leftists, who intend to ignore the 79% of us who actually don't want these two back. And they're going to use this to spark a culture war instead. Sorry, warning, but I've got to show you James O'Brien ludicrously suggesting that Harry and Meghan were once more popular than William and Catherine. This is the line that he's going with, until the racist British press got in the way.
Is it even possible that they could return to the days when they were more popular than William and Kate. They were just more natural. They were just more, before the guns of the British media parked upon their lawn, they were pretty much the dream ticket. You had a bona fide war hero and a beautiful actress. It was kind of Prince Rainier and Princess Grace territory. Of course, that was never going to overcome some of the racist objections to Meghan Markle. I still wonder which member of the royal family it was that wondered aloud how dark the baby's skin would be, but I suspect it's possibly one who isn't a member of the royal family anymore.
Well, no, actually, James O'Brien, it wasn't Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, actually. The point is, no racist comment was made, you deluded fool. The accusation was about Princess Catherine and King Charles. Are you going to go on radio and call them racist? Because even your hero, Prince Harry, you might remember, had to walk back that lie in an interview with Tom Bradby, where he said, oh no, it wasn't racism, it was just unconscious bias. But look, this man O'Brien, completely out of touch with Brits, he has been totally sucked in by Harry.
I mean, I might sound a little bit, I don't know, naive. Might sound as if I'm angling for a gong in the event of him ever ending up on the throne, which, let's face it, is impossible. But I'm not. I'm just trying to work out what I see in front of me. And I see a man born with influence who feels a deep sense of responsibility to using that influence for good.
I mean, Harry is here for the money, Mr. O'Brien. That is it. Over on GB News, there was another explosive fallout, this time between Prince Harry's friend, Archie Manners, and the Labour commentator, Matthew Laza.
Grandfather dying of cancer and a grandson, and let's hope it's the grandson and his brother.
If you look at the front page of the Metro, which has got a nice box at the bottom, which says from the repair shop to Dragon's Den, what's next for Meghan and Harry? Maybe they've come back because the Netflix contract has run out. They can't afford life in Montecito.
Pick a line. Well, the minute he said the word cancer, you were all softy, oh yes, we understand this, and now you're going for that. Pick a view. Why is he coming back? Which is it?
My personal view would be on the basis that he hasn't been that bothered about for the last few years.
I tell you what, though, he's not.
He's come back because they've run out of cash in California.
But he's not.
But we just heard that made tens of millions and they're avoiding tax. Pick an excuse, lads. If he has no cash, then he's not coming back for capital gains tax.
Listen.
The Netflix series bombed. The Spotify contract had to be terminated because nobody wanted to listen to it. So they may have got an advance. You know exactly how the media works. It's not going to carry on forever. It was running out. The gravy train on the back of the British British privilege had run out.
It isn't going to be.
Yeah, I mean, of course, the money is a huge part of it, but what the mainstream media won't report, but what I have been reporting here on Outspoken now for months and months and months, is that this is a deeply unhappy marriage. And I've got the Sussex squad back. Okay, so we saw Nina Mishkov yesterday. Today, it is the Michael Jackson-inspired Omid Scobie. Seriously, guys, look at this guy. I think he needs to relocate back to the UK, actually, with his idols too, in order to step away from the LA cosmetic surgeon's knife. Watch.
Did this news surprise you like it surprised the rest of us?
You know, I think if you've been watching the story really closely, the clues have been there all along. You know, we saw earlier this year that Harry and Meghan started to kind of scale down the size of their offices here, the number of staff working for them in the US. We also saw them scale down their charitable foundation as well to operate on a different working model. And so you can see then that along the way, this is a couple that have been slowly and methodically kind of planning some form of move, whether it's the version that was announced yesterday, only they know, but this is definitely a couple that have been looking to make changes for sure.
Well, certainly interesting.
But actually, you know, the worst people are the leftist race-baiting Harry and Meghan supporters. And it's disgusting what they're trying to do. I'm going to show you, but I'm furious about it. Channel 4 News let Tessa Dunlop, and she did it on Newsnight too, but I'll show you on Channel 4 News, try and shut down British coverage of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's return, very clearly in the public interest, right? By invoking the death by suicide of the fantasist Cambridge University professor Jason Arday.
How do you think this is going to actually play out?
I think in the last month, the British press has profoundly let itself down with the hounding of Jason Arday, a reminder that it is never acceptable to single out an individual and hound them. And I would very much hope that at least for this initial part of their new start in Britain, the right-wing press particularly behave themselves.
Tessa Dunlop, Valentine Lowe, thank you both very much.
Thank you.
It's sick. It's twisted. But this is the new attack line. Leftist horror Sangeeta Miska writing, the swivel-eyed loons and the right-wing media have learned nothing from Jason Arday's death. All it's taken is for Harry and Meghan to say they're returning to the UK, which they have every right to do, and they've begun sharpening their knives ready to monetize hate. As you know, I believe the UK should eventually evolve away from monarchy, the institution. But while it exists, could we please remember the members of it are human? But as Mayor Kachia put it correctly, summing up the problems of our divided kingdom under Labour and Charles III, Meghan and Harry's decision shows the UK continues in its unparalleled ability to attract the worst people to its shores while simultaneously driving away the people it should really be trying to keep. And as I say, all of this is about money because The devastating costs decision in Prince Harry's court case today against the Daily Mail are complicated, but I'm just going to sum it up very quickly for you. They knew they were going to have to pay a significant amount of costs. They wanted to pay £7.5 million this month. The judge said, no, for now, you pay £9.5 million. But, and this is the big but, your total bill is uncapped, which means that it could be as high as what the Daily Mail is asking for, £34.5 million. The real issue is Harry and his team, Elton John, Doreen Lawrence, that whole mob, are only covered to the tune of £16 million. Harry could be facing a bill this time next year of millions and millions of pounds. And the Daily Mail are celebrating today. Let me show you what Paul Dacre's newspaper group has said of this decision. Writing, the judgment is a devastating critique of an attempt to destroy a newspaper and the reputation of its journalists, editors and executives. From well before the trial started, the claimant's lawyers knew that their main witness, by the way, the claimant's lawyer, that's Prince Harry's lawyers, so Prince Harry knew that their main witness had denied making the preposterous allegations on which the claims were based. Despite this collapse in evidence to support the extremely serious allegations of abhorrent criminal activity, crimes and terrible and reprehensible covert acts by the Mail, they were emblazoned in a lurid press release issued on behalf of Baroness Lawrence, Prince Harry, and the other claimants with the exception of Sir Simon Hughes. The allegations were not withdrawn and were pursued until the bitter end of the trial. This placed a huge burden on the Mail to defend the reputation of its innocent journalists and the paper itself. The truth is that these outrageous claims should never have been brought, that they were pursued, raises disturbing questions about the conduct of elements of the legal profession. And what I will say, it also raises serious questions about the conduct of Prince Harry. Remember, I know a lot about this too. He also teamed up with Byline Times, just like he did against the Daily Mail, to try and destroy me as well. So we know what he's doing and we don't want him back, and we certainly don't want to pay £5 million a year to protect him. So Di Davies, this £5 million figure on the front page of the Daily Mail today, you say very realistic. And Di, also, can I just ask you, how on earth can our Prime Minister get away saying this is a private matter? If we are going to be funding Prince Harry's security, surely it's anything but private.
Well, good afternoon, and hello, everybody else. Lucy and Russell, nice to say hello to you.
Hi.
Yes, well, that's the top end of the estimate. When I was asked yesterday, I actually said 3 to 5. But I quite easily, if you remember that an armoured car now, a BMW or a Mercedes or any of these top end will cost you nearly £500,000 to have what's known as a B7. In other words, it will protect you from most attacks by a gun, explosion, and all the rest of it. So presumably, as they're so paranoid about their safety, they will have to go and take the children to school in these armoured cars to and from. So that's £1 million before you've started. Now, the house they apparently are going to live in, I presume it hasn't had the kind of infrastructure that we would put into a royal protection house. In terms of technical support, that can cost you several £1 million before you start, because you have to have cameras, you have to have infrared lights, you have to have alternative communication, you have to have a safe room, and they can go up to £1 million quite easily. So there are so many costs that will have to be made in terms of just making the house secure. Because if you look at history, as I have, of attacks on the British royal family and European royals, and indeed American presidents, a great deal of them actually take place in where they live. So that's crucial. That's a foundation that you have to spend before you start, in one sense. And certainly, I would say planning and preparing is key. It's arguably the most important aspect of keeping anyone safe. Forget the James Bond type things. The main thing to do is to prepare. And you've got to, when you start preparing, know what the itinerary of those you are protecting. In other words, what are they going to do here? What is their role here? Is it to set up a quasi-royal camp in alternative
yes, it is.
aspects?
I'll answer that, Di. Yes, it is. Di, can I just ask a question?
What I'm trying to say. So the costs before you start on the PPOs, and the top ones are on about 150,000 plus, they have to have accommodation. They have to have their national insurance paid for, their pensions contribution. So you're talking a package of huge amounts just for the people. So you can quite easily see how you can get to at least 3, 4, 5 million pounds and possibly more. So these are questions that need to be asked. But fundamentally, my view is, for somebody who's so paranoid until recently about their protection, this is a very strange way about it. They release it to their favored media outlets. There isn't a structured, we're doing this because of X, Y, and Z. We're doing it because we want to do more charity work, or we want to do this. What on earth are they going to do all day long in a soggy, wet winter in that part of the world? So there are so many questions. With great respect to all these experts that we're hearing from and thousands of words written, very few people have got down to the basics. Is it more likely it's some kind of conspiracy, as it were, I'm coming, and you lot had better drop everything because I'm so important. I deserve it. A bit that my brother's getting it, his children are getting it. Well, my is valuable, they're human as well, and I want it, and I'm going to force the hand of the British government. Now, with respect to the Prime Minister, he's new in the job. I doubt very much if he knows a great deal until very recently about protection and protecting our royals. So I think his response may have been off the cuff. I don't think it was particularly well made in that sense. I think he should have said, we wait to see what on earth they're going to do here. So that's my view on all of this. And as you know, for many, many years, I've said he doesn't deserve protection until the security services and those equipped to actually give a proper definition, is he now more at risk because he's coming here? Well, that remains to be seen. I don't know. Most people don't know. But there is an element of risk in this place. There's an element of risk because he's made it that way by his nonsense speak, by his continuing requirement for publicity almost on a weekly, daily basis, the two of them, for people who are purport to be so worried about security. Boy, who the hell advises them? As I've said before, it must be the same people who advised their Uncle Andrew, because in my opinion, they're totally off the scale of nonsenses. And frankly, I think most of us are fed up to the teeth of hearing about the pair of them. I wish they'd go somewhere, but don't come here. Certainly don't come to Wales where I live, because we don't want you.
Amen. Amen. Oh my God, I couldn't agree more. Di Davies, former head of Royal Protection, thank you so much for that fascinating insight. And I completely agree with what he's saying, by the way. This is a conspiracy. Harry is engaging in a conspiracy. That is so disturbing, and it has to be called out. Russell Quirk, can we talk about this costs decision today, though? Because this also really does paint a whole load of the picture behind the return to the United Kingdom, right? Because if Harry is going to be on the hook this time next year, Russell, potentially for £10 million. I mean, remember, he has said that he will also pay Doreen Lawrence's costs. He said she will not have to pay anything. And you're talking about a potential £34.5 million total. He can't afford private security to the tune of $3 million a year in America. So this costs decision today, obviously it's just a £9.5 million payment initially. But Russell, it is a devastating decision for him at a time when the money is running out anyway.
Yes, it is devastating, Dan. But of course, you know, the choices have been Harry and Meghan's, haven't they? So the choice to live in the US, the choice to no longer be working royals and therefore not to be afforded public money thrown at their security. And of course, his desire, his wish to go after various journalists and media outlets from a legal perspective. And look, if you roll that dice, you know exactly what the implications are if you lose. So I don't think anyone should have any sympathy for Harry and Meghan at all in terms of, you know, what is effectively, from Harry's point of view, just this relentless pursuit of vengeance because he believes that the media killed his mum. Now, I have sympathy for that, but I'm afraid if you're going to run the gauntlet against the might of KCs and lawyers that work for the Daily Mail group, well, then you may well come off badly. And of course, he has, and now he must take that on the chin, mustn't he? I'd go a little bit further, though, in terms of this conspiracy theory. And I'm not a massive conspiracy theorist. You know, you won't see me talking about kind of, you know, Bilderberg Group and, you know, politicians that are really lizards and UFOs and so on. That's not really my bag, Dan. However, we should, and I'm sure you'll want to investigate this, we should look at what the Heartland Institute are doing in terms of his visa application, whereby he sought and received a visa to live in the United States. And of course, you'll remember that 2 or 3 years ago, there were significant shenanigans, shall we say, around whether he was honest on that visa application form around his drug use. Of course, in Spare, that ridiculous book, available for 50p in all good bargain bins at poor bookshops. He said specifically that he was a user of hallucinogenic drugs, cannabis, and Class A drugs, cocaine, we think. However, if you were to put that, of course, on your visa application form to go and live in the United States, the chances are that you would be refused a visa. But he was granted a visa. So the question rises as to whether it was either waived in terms of him being honest and the US government deciding to allow him in anyway, or did he lie? Now, the Heartland Institute have put forward a whole bunch of FOIs and they've hit a brick wall until a little while ago they decided to FOI not the application form itself, but actually the documentation, the messages, the communications between various members of the State Department and, as I understand it, Harry's team. Now, they apparently are much more available, much more likely to be granted visibility by a US judge. And apparently there's a deadline on this, which is somewhere around the middle of October in terms of when that decision is going to be made in terms of that disclosure. I would venture, perhaps, Dan, it's not a coincidence that Harry has made the very surprising decision, given that he hates Britain and he thinks we're all racist and it's a dangerous place to bring his kids up? Maybe he's on the run from the US because perhaps, I venture, I'm speculating, maybe he is about to be caught out in terms of his visa application, and maybe ICE may well otherwise be knocking at his door and deporting him for real.
Well, Lady Colin Campbell does believe that there was the threat of a potential Feds arrest by the Feds. And this is one of the reasons he ran. Lucy, I want to ask you about how the left in this country, because you know all about this, right? You know all about how they will hunt down a target on the right. And what we're now seeing after the tragic death by suicide of Jason Arday, who I do not shy away from the fact was a plagiarist, a fantasist, you know, a guy who absolutely needed to be scrutinized and covered by the media. But they're now trying to use that case, Lucy Connolly, to shut down us having a discussion about Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's return and the fact we're going to have to pay all of these security costs. Now, I put it to you that for a long time, you were one of the most hated and hunted figures by these exact same people in the United Kingdom who seemed to want you dead, Lucy, who didn't have any sympathy about the fact that you were locked up for a year for a singular post on X. How do you feel when you see people like Tessa Dunlop and Sangeeta Miska now invoking Jason Arday to shut down any, I think, legitimate criticism or coverage of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle?
They are absolutely moronic, aren't they? At the end of the day, when it comes to Prince Harry, if he didn't want everyone to know he was coming back and have an opinion on it, why make such a big announcement and, you know, have a secret 10 p.m. Telegraph podcast where, you know, I was actually really excited, like they were going to announce a general election or something. And then, you know, imagine my disappointment. It was like Harry and Meghan are coming back, you know. But yeah, I mean, they're off their rockers, aren't they, the left? I mean, it's one rule for them, another for another. Look, Dan, I think it's terribly sad that Jason has taken his life. It's sad for his family. It's sad for his children. I think it's horrific that he felt that he didn't have any option but to do that.
And we don't celebrate, by the way, on our side of politics. We don't celebrate deaths of our political opponents.
No, I have not seen anybody heart or not have any sympathy for the fact that he has taken his life. But equally, let's not pretend like he was some saint and, you know, some good guy. He wasn't. He was a fraud and a liar. And they are one of the two worst things you can be in life, to be honest, aren't they? So, yes, it's terribly sad and it's awful. And yes, the mainstream media and you know, different sides of the media do hound people. I've been hounded for a year by these people, the likes of Dan Hodges, the likes of Narinder Kaur, the likes of Femi, actively tell me that while I'm supporting reform, they will hound me. They're not going to let it go. But, you know, I'm with Katie Hopkins, you know, I'm sure you've all seen that video that she did the other day about, powerful. You know, and it was resonated so much with me because that is exactly how I feel. I know that I'm not a racist. I know that I'm a good person. So actually, it doesn't matter what these dickheads on Twitter say about me or, you know, these self-righteous morons that are standing in the street with placards saying the reason he's dead is because of racism, but we're celebrating the death of Anne Widdecombe 2 weeks before.
Well, yeah, do you know, Russell, one of those people who actually celebrated the death of Anne Widdecombe and she hasn't apologised is this nutter called Super Tansky, who's part of all of that crowd. Yeah, awful. Horrid. Byline Times, Carol Vorderman, the whole lot. And again, she's desperate to link these two stories, Russell. She's posted today, if Harry and Meghan thought it was bad before, they've not seen anything yet. Since they left, National Front parties are polling high. She's talking about Restore Britain there. MPs who espouse Nazi rhetoric are elected to Parliament. Presume she's talking about Rupert Lowe. And the mainstream media is now digitally lynching black people. I fear for them. So it's like, Russell, they are the ones who are trying to use a tragic death to spark not just a culture war, Russell, I'm going to say it, to spark a race war. And Meghan Markle is like a sort of helpful prop for them.
Yeah, I mean, it's ironic, isn't it, that the left always say that it's the right, the likes of Reform, for instance, that are the ones that promote division. And so do the likes of Dan Wootton and Mike Graham and GB News and so on. But it's always the left that seek to weaponise everything that they possibly can that might, you know, have a slither of race attached to it. You know, every time pretty much that I'm on one show or another and the subject is asylum seekers that rape people and so on, and then there's some kind of social media chatter about it, I'm always labelled a racist. I mean, probably even as much, if not more, than Lucy is. You know, I'm labelled as a perpetual racist because I dare to talk about the fact that Afghan men, for instance, have a much higher propensity to rape women and girls in this country than British nationals. Now I've said that, apparently that's racist, even though it happens to be a matter of actual fact. Yeah, look, it's a very lazy slur, isn't it? That, you know, in the old days, you could label someone as a racist and that would shut down the argument and you'd kind of win it. That would be your knockout blow as someone arguing with somebody else across the desk or across the aisle. But now, of course, for those of us, as Lucy rightly says, on the centre right, the sensible right, that are not extreme, that are not racist, but we just want to protect and improve and rescue our country, now it kind of just bounces off us. I think we're Teflon to these stupid
because they've overused them exactly to such a point where they become meaningless. Look, I do just have to share with you one of the funniest stories, though, because, Harry and Meghan are now trying to say, we never really wanted to wade into American politics. Well, the New York Post have just revealed exactly how far they went in order to do so. And it does just show you, I think, how much their stock has fallen over the past few years. So this is their exclusive reporting. Delusional Prince Harry and Meghan Markle sought US political clout far beyond dreams of any royal since King George III, the Post has learned, with the Duchess of Sussex angling to take over the Senate seat held by Kamala Harris ahead of the 2020 presidential election. Weeks before Democrat Joe Biden's win over President Donald Trump, a source says Markle requested a sit-down with California Governor Gavin Newsom because she wanted to be considered to be appointed to the seat held by Harris, which she vacated just before becoming vice president on January the 20th, 2021. The source added that the discussion was publicly described as a welcome to California chat to head off potential inquiries. Then we moved to late 2021, and both Harry and Meghan requested an Oval Office meeting with Joe Biden, as well as accommodation at nearby Blair House. That is a perk reserved for foreign leaders on state visits, multiple sources say. White House staff quickly rejected the idea, with one source noting the spectacle of Harry and Meghan sitting down with the leader of the free world would have caused a major diplomatic kerfuffle with number 10 Downing Street and the British royal family. Another source, a former Biden aide, said the president and First Lady Jill Biden, long-standing admirers of Queen Elizabeth II, didn't want to get into a family squabble by hosting the rogue royals. Ultimately, the couple's attempt to become kingmakers fizzled out. Similar to their ambitions in Hollywood and the lifestyle space, Harry and Meghan even wore out their welcome with the Biden administration, sources say, despite the first couple's personal sympathy for the prince following the loss of his mother, Princess Diana, in a 1997 car crash. Joe Biden's first wife, Nalia, and infant daughter, Naomi, were killed in a 1972 vehicle wreck that also injured the couple's two sons, Beau and Hunter. Jill Biden, meanwhile, had been a regular at the Invictus Games, the sporting event for wounded veterans founded by Harry in 2014, but she ultimately stopped attending the games after she became First Lady in January 2021, due once again to the optics surrounding Harry's departure from the UK. So, Russell, they can say whatever they want about why they're returning to the UK and what it is really about, but as this proves, their ambitions in America were huge. I mean, Meghan Markle literally thought that she was going to walk in and become the US Senator for California. And my reporting, remember at the time, is that ultimately she did believe that that would lead to a White House run. So, I mean, their grand plans have collapsed.
Yeah, unfortunately, their ambitions were somewhat outweighing their ability, right? So, it's all very well being ambitious, but you have to kind of match that with capability. And I think where Harry and Meghan are concerned, that ability certainly falls short. And I think whether it's the world of showbiz and entertainment, continuing to be a kind of, B-list actress on an irrelevant show watched by 9 people on, whatever, some sub HBO channel somewhere, or indeed political ambitions, or really just being the glitterati of California on the basis that, of course, Harry is of royal gentry. I mean, all of that fell flat. That ran out of steam very, very quickly. The Netflix thing ran out of steam. The Spotify thing ran out of steam. I think where they had these huge ambitions on the basis of, I guess, the reputation that carried them over to the United States off the back of the royal family's name and so on, and maybe Meghan naively thinking that her appearance on a couple of crappy movies and that Suits program would, again, carry them to kind of long-term fame and fortune. It's fizzled out, hasn't it? And now they've got to find a new grift. And maybe, and again, being a bit cynical, we would be forgiven for thinking that there is a master plan when it comes to coming back. Maybe they're on the run from ICE, who knows? But it might just be that there is some other kind of showbiz opportunity that they believe is there by way of a reconciliation with King Charles and maybe William and so on. You can't help but think that this is about money, fame and fortune, rather than there being any authentic kind of wish.
It didn't work. It didn't work in Hollywood. I think you're completely right, Russell. And actually, apparently, Tina Brown reporting today that Meghan Markle does have a job, an entertainment job lined up. I mean, what, are we going to see her in the Vic, in EastEnders, in the Rovers Return? I mean, Lucy, that's sort of all she's capable of, right? Like, as an actress.
She's got a Butlin's red coat job. Could you imagine?
Yeah.
Do you know, it's the whole situation is really funny, because I could not give a flying fig about Meghan or Harry. I really couldn't. And, going back to that super Skanksky or whatever her name is, the very thought that she's, suggested that, she's talking about like the likes of Russell and I, National Front nonsense. She is absolutely referring to people like him and I. The thought that we'd actually give a shit about what Meghan and Harry are doing or saying, because we haven't got bigger things to worry about in our lives and in our country, have we, than what Meghan's doing next, whether she's going to appear in the Queen Vic or or the Rovers. Who gives a shit? Not me.
Very well put. Okay.
This video is for news reporting, commentary, and educational purposes. The views expressed are based on publicly available information and personal analysis. We strive for accuracy but encourage viewers to verify information through official sources.